So what happened the night of the storm? I guess it probably just makes more sense to start a little bit earlier than the storm. That day, my father asked us to sandbag the house, and I really wasn't, enjoying that. I didn't think it was going to be as bad as it was, and because of that, I also decided that instead of going and evacuating, I decided that I would, stick it out in the house, and I thought that it would be a good situation because if something bad was going to happen, I'd be able to be here and sort of mitigate it or fix it. And that was, I guess, my main reason for trying to stick around. And that and the fact that Irene was not as bad as people predicted it to be. So I thought this was another case of the media blowing things out of proportion. But after my family left and I was alone in the house, the day went on, and then I guess we would go down periodically to the ocean and see that it was getting closer and closer and closer until about 5 o'clock when we went down there to take pictures of it, basically hitting the boardwalk. And as I was lining up a shot to take a picture of the boardwalk, when I was lining up a picture to see the waves crashing towards the boardwalk, I actually had my camera out and I was looking at the water coming, and I was like, oh, that's coming close. That's going to be a good picture. Oh my God, this wave is going to hit me. So I immediately started running back the other way, and I went back to the house, and it didn't really come down the block until maybe about hour later, which is still, I think, 2 hours, 3 hours before they were actually predicting the surge to happen at about 9. And I guess at about 6:30 it started to come down the block the water came down the block pretty easily. And the big problem was that the drains weren't taking the water. It wasn't actually up on the sidewalk yet, but it was on the street, and the drains were clogging up with trees, sand, debris. So we had two people on either side of the street using brooms and brushes and sticks, essentially, to try and keep the drains clear to make sure that at least the water would go down. And maybe that would, I guess, slow the oncoming tide. And when it became clear that that wasn't going to work, we, retreated to our homes. I to my house initially, and I guess the rest of our neighbors who were outside trying to, I guess, make way for the water to go, went to their houses, and we kind of, I guess, we go out, and then basically for every half hour or so, you'd go in the house, kind of relax in whatever way that you were relaxing, and go back outside, and everyone would just kind of congregate outside on their porches and be like, oh man, this is getting worse and worse. So we, at one point, the water really started to come up, and it was odd because, it is the ocean, but it would come in waves, where it would not be that bad for a few minutes, and then it would be like a huge set of waves would come in, and it would be wave after wave after wave. And we, it got to the point where it was coming up the driveway, which was something I wasn't expecting to happen. But we had sandbags, so I figured what I would do is I would reposition the sandbags to block it from going down the driveway and kind of try and protect a portion of the house, which was vulnerable to begin with because there's a side door and a crawl space. So if I could prevent the water from getting in there, it would have been, I thought that would be a good move. It turns out that that was a bad idea because instead of keeping the water from going in from the front of the house, it was holding the water that came in from the back, from the street behind us. So it's actually, in front of the house, the water level was like this, and in the back of the house, it was like this. So I actually had to move the sandbags away to let the water flow out to the front, which is, again, sort of, I guess, counterintuitive to what I was thinking was going to happen. And it was probably a little after that the waves knocked, I guess, they already kind of broke the boardwalk where it split, but it hit, I guess, a telephone pole at the end of the block. And when that happened, it knocked the transformer into the water. And it was at that moment, all of us were kind of outside at this point. You heard a loud boom, and then all the lights went out. And I was still in, I guess, on my porch watching all of this happen. I actually took a short video myself, but it wasn't, you really couldn't see much because the lights were already out. So, and it was at this point that my neighbors next door, who had been kind of on me to, hang out with them for, I guess, the duration. Because I was here alone, I guess they didn't want me alone that night, which I guess in retrospect was probably a good move. But they, continued asking me if I wanted to come over, and at this point that I grabbed a bottle of wine, a pair of flip-flops, and a hoodie, and waded over from my porch to theirs, and hung out with them for the rest of the night. It was probably around, I'd say, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. It was tough to tell time because I was turning my phone on and off to save the battery because obviously the power went out. But around 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, we kind of saw the sky was kind of a bright orange coming from the west, which again, it's 10, 11 o'clock at night, so it's too early for the sun to be coming up on the wrong side of the world. But we kind of determined it had to be a fire. And the way that the sky was with the clouds, it would reflect any light that hit it. So there's no way of knowing if the fire was a mile away, 2 blocks away. You couldn't really tell how close it was. We'd already heard from, I guess, firemen that I know who texted me at one point in the night when I turned my phone on that there was a fire in Breezy Point, but the problem was the fire trucks couldn't get down there because it was still kind of at the height of the storm, so there was no getting a fire truck to Breezy Point. But it later came out that I guess the fires were on 129th Street, and everything was kind of word of mouth. There was no real. It was very difficult to get information because you're dealing with a place where no one can get to, and the radio was, I guess, our primary source of news because there's no TV. And cell phone reception was spotty. If you were trying to get news on the internet, it wasn't really coming through as quickly as it normally does. But we would, sporadically go outside and check to see if the light got brighter, which I guess, in my mind, would think that the fire was getting closer, or if it was getting darker, or if it was, if the light moved in any direction. At one point, it felt like it was everywhere, and where we were situated, the water was, I guess, to our left, and the fire from the house, which was like here, you could see the fire kind of over here. But the way that, or yes, you could see the glow of the fire over here, but it still lit up the entire sky to the point where it looked like the fire was all the way around the house. So, in my mind, we're completely trapped. And I guess it's kind of, I feel like situations like this really sort of show people's true colors. So, there were people that were, the minute the storm happened, people were looting, and that's, not a good situation. But on the flip side of that, we obviously became much closer with the people in our immediate vicinity. So our neighbors really kind of banded together and helped each other out with, whatever it was, whether or not it was taking stuff out of the basements or, just sharing a few laughs with a couple of people. A guy moved in across the street, and I hadn't said probably 5 words to him in the 6 months he's been living here, but since the storm, he's probably become one of my favorite people on the block. There are a few nights where we, had a couple of beers, together. Like the whole block of us would have a couple of beers, listen to music, laugh about our respective problems that we're going through. But it was really refreshing to know that I live in a neighborhood with people like this that, in the face of this great disaster, are still our friends.